Now, the tone you want to adapt while you go into these meetings is I would call practical optimism. Self-management is the ability of handling distressing emotions. We can't always control the way we feel, but we can control the way we respond to how we feel. Emotional intelligence is managing your relationship with yourself and with others. And when you can manage your emotions, your team follows your lead. To build that emotional connection, it starts with you even before you walk into that remote meeting. Instead of asking what life is doing to us and our businesses, Frankl said, we need to take responsibility for life. And in each moment, what is life expecting of us? I want to talk today about what you can do to master the art of connectedness. You see, we're all working from home today. Everyone is in an unparalleled and unprecedented time in which we have to find ways, even though we're physically distant from each other, to connect with our teams on a social level. Now, I just want to give you a heads up. I, like you, am working from home, and at any moment, my little puppy that my wife Karen and I bought our kids, Kobe and Maya, could come running through here. But that is the reality we live in today. And first, I want to talk about a few practical things that you can do with your teams immediately, as soon as you stop listening to this, to build emotional connection, even though we're all working in remote places. Now, the first thing you can do is you can create the type of environment where people feel that they have a similar feeling as they do one-on-one, even though it's not quite the same. You can do virtual drop-ins. You can do standalone sessions with both your employees and your customers. You can have one-on-one 30-minute sessions where you give them whatever they need. You ask them how you can help them. You can use Zoom. You can text people. You can write a handwritten note, scan it, and then send it to each of your employees and your most valued customers. Now, it's key to think about this interaction to build that emotional connection in terms of conversations, not lectures. We are now in more of a lecture format, but I am modeling the kind of feeling that you, with your team, might be best to take on. It's the mindset of a mentor. Now, when you're actually talking to people, there's a few things I want you to keep in mind. My friend Mark Bowden, who's also a Tech Canada speaker, he talks about keeping the camera up at eye level. You don't want to be looking down the nose, or your team to be looking down the nose of you when you're speaking. Show your face on camera. Show the background. I mean, you see some personal things. You see my bookshelf. This is me in my work environment. Let them see you. Let your team see you in your workspace at home. And your body language matters. Smile, look up at the camera when you can, listen as much as you talk, if not more, and project a warm, open tone when you speak. Now, I'm purposely not using PowerPoint. I think PowerPoint takes away and breaks that social connection. So when you're speaking with your remote teams, some nice sunlight is all you need. I have a microphone here, just off camera. And when I want to show something, I can simply move back and I can write on my little blackboard right about here. I don't have to go too far, and yet we still keep this interaction intact. Now, you as the leader can do a few things that really help build those emotional connections. And it starts with really understanding what it means to become self-aware so that you are walking into those meetings, those virtual meetings, and setting the tone, setting the emotional tone, because your emotions drive your behaviors. And leaders who have high EQ or emotional intelligence is managing your relationship with yourself and with others. And when you can manage your emotions, your team follows your lead. And when they follow your lead, okay, well, I promised you that from working from home, every day is like take your kids to work day. And we just had our interruption. Is this is Charlie, and these are my kids, Kobe and Maya. Titanic, I promised you an interruption from a puppy, and you got one. Charlie, say hi to the camera, please. Now, if this does not inspire an emotional response from you, I don't know what would. So thank you, Charlie, and I'll see you soon. Okay? See you, buddy. Thank you. See you guys. And I'm not going to apologize for that because you know it could happen to you at any moment too. Now, the first thing we're going to talk about is your self-awareness. So self-awareness, to build that emotional connection, it starts with you even before you walk into that remote meeting or you connect with your team in the midst of these times. And so to build that social closeness, the first thing I want you to do with self-awareness is understand that it's working from the inside out. You see, it's mentoring your inner world. It's knowing what and why you feel the way you feel. And when you're talking to your team, they will feel that. They will use you as the moral compass and the barometer as to how they feel about what's going on. Here are a few things you can do to build your self-awareness before you actually go in and speak with your teams. You can do something called morning pages. Now, morning pages is simply getting out a pen and writing out on a piece of paper every day whatever is on your mind for 30 minutes first thing in the morning. Now, some of the leading creative people know this works. It was founded by Julia Cameron, who worked with creative visionaries over several decades and found that when you write out things by hand, it has almost a self-therapeutic ability to put out any difficult emotions that you may be holding in. And so when you write that out, it doesn't have to be negative. It can be something positive. It could be goals that you have set, but it's stream of consciousness and you're getting it all out on the page. Now, I challenge you to do that over the next 2 weeks, 30 minutes a morning or 2 to 3 pages. No one's going to see it. This is just for you. And then you take a transition breath and then you go into that meeting and you will feel refreshed. You'll feel lighter. And you'll also feel more emotionally ready to tackle the day ahead. Another thing you can do is a journal. There's an excellent journal called Brendan Bouchard's High Performance Journal that you can order on Amazon. Now, I use this journal. I've been obsessed with journals for more than 20 years. Now, what this does is it primes you in that mentor's mindset so that you're focusing on what you're going to give to the day, what bold moves you're going to take, what advice you'd give yourself, how you're going to structure that day, not just logistically, but also on an emotional level, from a mindset of positivity, courage, focus, and emotional groundedness. The next thing I'd suggest to you is write down what you're grateful for, not just in a general way. When you're doing your morning pages or within your journal, write down specific things that you're grateful for, even within this crisis that we all find ourselves in. So, for example, what's one opportunity that you can forecast from your current situation of working with your team on a remote level? That may not be obvious, but it's telling your mind, it's prompting your mind to see the opportunity that may lie in the crisis. Another question is, who's one mentor in your life who you're grateful for? Write that person's name down, and I challenge you to reach out to that person by phone, by text, on social media. This would be a good use of making social media social to bring closeness in this particular case. And also write down one lesson that you've learned so far about yourself by being in quarantine at your home. So, morning pages, gratitude journal, and write down specifically why you're grateful for certain things. Now, the tone you want to adapt while you go into these meetings is I would call practical optimism. Optimism in a blind sense may take away trust because it feels inauthentic. But practical optimism is best exemplified, I think, by a story that every Tech Canada member might benefit greatly from reading over the next 2 weeks. And it's called the Stockdale Paradox. You see, Admiral James Stockdale was the highest ranking American prisoner of war during the Vietnam War. And he made a distinction that he said saved his life. He said those prisoners, those he knew well, as tough as they were, who were just purely optimistic, they ended up crumbling, many of them emotionally, because they would say, if I only think that I'm going to get out by Christmas to see my family, then that's going to help me through. And then they were strong until Christmas. But when they realized that they didn't have any control over when they would get out, and Christmas came around, and they still were locked up and being tortured in a prison camp, thousands of miles from their family in a dirt hut, they got down emotionally, and they had trouble recovering from that. So what Admiral Stockdale did is he said, we have to always believe that we will prevail. We have to let our team know that we got this. Say to your team, we got this. We're going to make it through. We're going to have the courage to continue. We have all the elements in the midst of winter to find in us an invincible summer, to quote the French writer Albert Camus. And when we have that prevailing faith and belief as a team, and that we lead that, you lead that as a Tech Canada CEO or an executive for your team, then your team starts to feel that. Yet, you also want to balance that paradox with the hard, brutal facts of where the company is right now. So we want to know that we're going to prevail. Let your team know that. You absolutely have confidence that this is going to happen. But you also want to balance that with letting them know that you are in full command of what the facts on the ground are. And that paradox helped Admiral Stockdale get through, as he noted in the Stockdale Paradox. Now, the second thing I want you to think about when it comes to your emotions is self-management. So if self-awareness is knowing ourselves from the inside out, self-management is the ability of handling distressing emotions. This is not just for you now. This is also modeling this for your family who are in the same home with you. So you move from panic to an empowered state so that they see that. And also, it's for your team when you're in these remote conversations to build that closeness. And the way you manage your emotions is as follows. It's to focus on what is in your control as a team. To ask your team, what is in our control right now? And also being aware of managing what's not in our control. And much right now is not in our control. But the one thing that's in our control is our attitude. See, Viktor Frankl, a Viennese psychiatrist who survived Auschwitz, he noted when he observed in the concentration camps, which formed the seminal psychiatric theory of the 20th century called logotherapy, that people who survived had the ability to control one thing, their attitude. Now, luck played a role in it. Those who wanted to live still perished. But he said those who survived had not just luck on their side, but they had in their midst the control of one of life's last freedoms. And that was their attitude. That in the midst of any difficult circumstance you can find yourself in, that we find ourselves all in right now, we have control over our attitude. Instead of asking what life is doing to us and our businesses, Frankl said, we need to take responsibility for life. And in each moment, and each hour, and each day, we are to ask ourselves, what is life expecting of us? And take the responsibility to manage our emotions so that we are moving forward with strength and courage. Now, how can you manage your emotions? There are a few things that you can do. The first is something that I've been studying for about 15 years, and that's mindful breathing. So this is a very simple thing, but this is something that we all can do. This is one of the things I do with Tech Canada groups is we do mindful breathing, mindful walking exercises so that you can show up to any meeting, including building social closeness in your next remote meeting with a calm and composed manner so that people can feel it off the screen, because our emotions are contagious. Encouragement is contagious. And it's not always what we say, but it is how people perceive how we're projecting how we feel. So let's breathe together. Now, this is a science-backed breathing exercise by John Kabat-Zinn, who wrote a book called Full Catastrophe Living. He's a doctor who is really the pioneer of mindful breathing. And he found that with patients, when he did this in the 900 different groups that he set up in hospitals across the world, and in groups like the one that my wife and I participated in for 3 months, that it lowers stress and anxiety, it keeps you focused on the task at hand, and other people feel calmer in your presence. So here's what we're going to do. If you're sitting down, I'm standing, but you can sit up or stand. You're going to sit up straight, almost like a mountain, but you're not going to do this, or you're not going to be any different than you usually are. You're going to breathe in through your nose if that's comfortable for you, for 5. Hold for 2, and breathe out, and through the nose, if possible, for 5. Again. Breathe out. Now you continue to breathe, so continue to breathe. Now, as you continue to breathe, I want you to ask yourself, what is the feeling you're feeling right now? So name it. Think of it. So right now, I am feeling excited. And then once you name it, continue to breathe. You then ask yourself, where am I tense in my body right now? So for me, I usually feel some tension in the upper part of the neck here. Some people feel it in the hips or the lower back. I just want you to be aware of that. So we breathe in simply, 5, hold 2, breathe out. We ask ourselves, how am I feeling right now? Name it. Try to go beyond I'm happy or sad. Be really specific. And then name the place of your body where you feel tension. Now, if you're really ramped up or you feel a bit anxious or you feel a little bit irritable, go away if you can, somewhere quietly within your house right now, and feel it through in a non-judgmental way. We can't always control the way we feel, but we can control the way we respond to how we feel. Now, this is one exercise you can do with your team, and you can do it here. What I want you to do right now is you can get out a piece of paper. You can pause this and come back in a moment. Get a piece of paper. I'll wait. And a pen. I have chalk. Now, I want you to write down. I want you to write a line down the center of a page. And then I want you to write on one side emotion. And the other side, I want you to write reason. So this is a great exercise of how we can logically manage our emotions, but yet balance it with just enough of emotion to really see that balance that needs to happen for a truly holistic and well response, an answer that responds, that has both our emotions intact and our logic. And I want you to ask yourself, what question or what problem are you struggling with right now on your team? And write it right at the top. So I want you to write out what the problem that your team might be going through right now, one of those problems. Write it at the top. Now I want you to just answer 2 questions. I want you to actually first go through how much of that response of your problem is coming from an emotional reaction. So what are you doing right now to answer that problem that's coming from a reactive emotional place? So How are you responding emotionally? How do you feel as you're answering that question, that problem? And I also want you to write down, what logical solution are you coming up with to that problem? So you write down, just jot note, where is this answer being from an emotional place and from a reasonable place? And then take a moment to examine that and ask yourself, where are your emotions clouding your judgment? Where are your emotions clouding your judgment with this particular problem? And then the second question is, where is reason ignoring your emotions in this particular case? So where is reason ignoring the emotions at the heart of this problem? And when you do that, it will be an excellent way to manage how you feel and balance it with a logical framework moving forward in a time in which our emotions are sometimes moving us in very different directions. Here are a few other ways that you can quickly manage your emotions. Before you respond to someone online, if you have an open conversation, which I highly recommend you do, is have a question and answer period on a regular basis, regular check-ins, virtually give your team chances to speak with you in short conversational tones. Someone may say something that may stump you. You may not know the answer. And to be transparent within your organization is really essential for building trust in a time like this. Adam Silver, the commissioner of the NBA, I saw him on TV and he admitted, I don't have all the answers. I don't know every step of when the NBA season is going to resume. But he had this open and honesty about the way he responded to the questions. And in one particular case, he didn't answer right away. He waited, which seemed like an eternity on TV. It was probably only a few seconds, but I saw what he was doing. He actually was managing his emotions and how he was going to respond to this question. So you don't have to respond to your team live when you're speaking with them on the spot. One thing you can do is count to 10 if you can. That may seem like a long time, but even if you give yourself a little pause or a little window, a little pregnant space in order to couch from your response, thinking to the actual response, it's going to help you manage any emotions that may come up that may be clouding your judgment about how you respond. So count to 10. The other thing is, each day has been a challenge. So we want to do our best to live in day-tight compartments, like Dale Carnegie famously once said. But when we do so, I would add one more thing. Live in day-tight compartments where we sleep on it. So if you're dealing with a particularly stressful thing as a leader, you're feeling emotionally drained, annoyed, angry at what's going on, understandably so, sleep on it. Don't respond right away. Don't respond to that email. It's not avoiding it. You're not distancing yourself. You're just simply smartly giving yourself a little bit of space to really take in what the emotion is, absorb it. You could do what we said earlier with mindful breathing and sleep on it. Because often when we make a bad decision, it's sometimes when it's from a place of we're just tired, we're emotionally drained, enervated, exhausted. Abraham Lincoln did something extraordinary. When he was assassinated, they went into his White House office and they found in his drawer a full, overflowing list of letters that were never sent. They were often written to military personnel who had disobeyed his commands, where he was frustrated with. And what the people who read it saw surprised them, because he was always so measured, Lincoln, in person. He always had a sense of humor, even in the most dire situations. He always seemed like he had it under control. But here was an idea of Lincoln writing out, similar to morning pages, what he felt, and he did something which you can do too. That letter needed to be sent. 2.5 weeks after he wrote it, he would send it. But he never felt, for the most part, those letters needed to be sent. And that was how he managed his emotions. The next thing you can do when it comes to dealing with your emotions is something called social awareness or empathy. And one way you can show empathy is striking a balance with your team, your remote team, between micromanaging and giving too much space. You want to give your team space, but you also want to make sure that they know that you're there for them. It could be regular check-ins. You could have a formal meeting where you start with a human question. Instead of jumping in to updates, you could ask them something like, what's one thing that would make your life easier this week that I could help you with? What's one thing that could make your life easier that I could help you with? And that's the type of human question that your team will sit up and say, oh, and if they hear one person on the team give you a response, they'll feel more trust that they can do it too. And then if you follow up with that the next day within 24 hours and you act upon what you can to help them, that is going to circulate within the culture of your team just as quickly as if it was done in person. People will talk in one way or another that you are going above and beyond to really bridge that gap that exists between the physical distance that has been imposed on us and the social and emotional connection that you're really making the effort to bridge the gap with. Now, empathy is key as well, because empathy helps us get inside our people's minds about what they're thinking, about what they're feeling. When Winston Churchill found himself in the brink of the most important decision in really the history of the modern world, when he was deciding whether or not to follow Lord Halifax, one of the leading cabinet members in Chamberlain, who wanted appeasement and wanted to start peace negotiations with Hitler and Mussolini, Churchill went to the people. He went to the underground, which he had never actually been on. He'd never been on the subway system in England. And he went to the people. And there's an extraordinary moment where he went there on his own, Winston Churchill, and he sat amongst the people who were in shock when their prime minister was amongst them. And he asked them what their name was. Abigail Higgins, John Peters, a bricklayer. And he asked them with humility what they thought was the best move for England. Should they appease? Should they give in to Hitler? Or should they fight? Should they fight to the end? And they unanimously said, we need to fight. We need to fight on. And he saw the courage in their eyes from a little girl to an elderly gentleman. And he knew that that was in his heart and his instincts what needed to be done. He went, left that underground. He was in tears. And there's a few things we can learn there when it comes to empathy and social awareness as a leader, getting inside the heads of the people. What he taught us was, do you know your team? Do you really know them beyond their names? I know you know their names. Do you know their kids? Do you know anything about them? Have you asked them, how is this virtual experience going for you? And if they say, I'm not happy with it, you acknowledge that. You acknowledge the pain. You acknowledge the circumstances that we all find themselves in. You acknowledge difficulties that they may be having, and you work to help them with that mentor mindset. Like Churchill, you're going to the people, you're going to your people, and you are asking them how you can serve, how you can help, not how you can sell. Right now, the best thing for your brand is to help your customers and your employees in any way you can. And Churchill left there not only knowing a little more about the people who he served, but he also made a decision collaboratively that changed the course of history. Now, that is empathy. Now, empathy is something that we can develop in the following ways. You can catch the mood of your team if you simply sit there with them online. And even as people are coming up, they're coming online, look at their facial reactions. Do they look a little nervous, uptight? You can tell a lot, even in this square. You can tell how people are processing what's going on here. And if you're not sure, again, ask them. Ask them how you can help them. Ask them what's going on in their family. Ask them how they've adapted or not. And really listen to them. Ask them one-on-one as well. So make small talk. The last part is relationship management. And relationship management is key because this is a time that might present an ideal and unprecedented opportunity to deepen relationships by taking you out of the context of the usual physical structures of an office. Because some relationships may be a little strained, but when we get out of our usual elements, especially people who are more inward looking, in any office, 50% of your team is going to be a little bit more inward looking. The term is introverted, although I think that's limited. I don't think any of us are fully introverted or fully extroverted. We're a little ambiverted, a combination of both. But those who don't really like meetings, but what we can do to change that is by seeing this as an opportunity to be innovative with the way we engage with our teams. So for one thing, make it conversational, like we said earlier. Make breakout sessions on Zoom, which I'm using right now. Breakout sessions are a way for small groups of teams to talk about something that matters to them. What you can also do is when you're connecting with your team, you can coach them. You can coach them online. You can give them prompts. So some excellent coaching prompts are: resist the urge to be brilliant. Don't jump in and answer their questions. Make this a time, like Churchill did, of asking them what they think and being quiet and letting them speak, giving them space and time to answer. It also changes the power dynamic because in any given meeting, about 90% of the talk, this is just anecdotal and working my whole life in different environments, about 90% of the conversation, or not the conversation, is one or two people dominating that conversation. It's maybe not even you. It's someone else on the team who always, the know-it-all, always has something to say. And you don't really get the true value from everyone in the room. You don't hear their voices. So in an online environment, the more inward looking, the more introverted ones, in those breakout sessions, in the conversational tone, in those short, concise, focused meetings, in their own space at home, might be more inspired than they've ever been to participate in ways that you've never seen before. And so it's a great opportunity to connect with your teams, with your relationships. Now, on those online meetings, Lorne Michaels, my former boss at Saturday Night Live, would say to me, there's a few things that make a great meeting. Everyone has a voice. So this is a way to be inclusive, get diverse voices speaking. You can set it up in a way where no one can dominate this type of meeting if you structure it correctly. Make sure that people are truly listened to. So active listening is simply when we're speaking, assuming we are right now, I listen to what you say. I'm undistracted. I don't have any phone nearby. I'm trying my best when I'm working at home for my kids and the dog not to run in, but that might happen, as it did. And I'm acknowledging what you're saying with verbal prompts. Yes, excellent, fantastic. Really? Okay. Oh, okay. I'm acknowledging what the person's saying with my body contact. I'm leaning in a little bit, maybe not too close. You want to respect people's personal space. I'm leaning in a little bit, even online. You can even lean in and listen, like, wow, okay. Show them your expressions online, and you repeat back to them the key points. So you say to them, so what I'm hearing you say is, and you extrapolate, you take the key details and you give it back to them, say, is this what you meant? And they say, no, I didn't mean that, or yes, I did. And then you say, yes, and that's wonderful. And you can build on that by saying, yes, and it feels like a partnership, even though you may be several miles away. And that's one way that you can really connect and build and deepen that relationship with some people you might have had a little bit of tension with, or they might have had tension with each other. When you model this on a call to build that social closeness and that emotional connectedness even when we're physically apart. Now, this is a time of uncertainty, of panic in some ways, of people not knowing what's going to happen next. And you, in your role, have the ability to do what Maya Angelou said. As she said, even though you've gone through those difficult moments, every difficult moment has led you to be ready for this one today. Winston Churchill said, success is not final. Failure is not fatal. But we need to have the courage to continue on.